Welcome back to another Prison Tron gameplay video. Today we'll be looking at Modern Challenge I played today, 5 and 2. I'm playing the same deck list that I did from last Thursday with 62 cards, 2 Chalice main, 1 Dismember. You can find it in the description below, there'll be a link. Starting off with round 1, I messed up the recording a little bit, so we're starting at game 3. But playing against Rhinos, I won game 1 and lost game 2. So game 3 you're on the play. Keep a hand with 2 Tron pieces and a Chalice. Hope it's enough. 5, I think. This was. After using a bunch of Senior Powder. So as you can see, there are 25 cards in exile. Although not too many of them are super relevant. There's 2 rings, 1 Karn, 2 Sagas, 1 Fair. But still enough stuff in the deck for it to be functional. So, and also notably, the hand I kept had Mine and Power Plant, and 0 copies of Tower had been exiled. So in about 30 cards, there are 4 copies of Tower. Somewhat likely to hit Tron, and I did. But they have Blood Moon, so it doesn't matter. But this Chalice of the Void is going to stop them from having any pressure at all. So, just play lands and cast spells on their Blood Moon. Just a little bit slower. Here I make a mistake with Mystic Forge. I want to press F6, but if I could have cast that Ballista for 0, it would basically just draw an additional card for free. They have Flame to destroy the Mystic Forge, but we draw Snaring Bridge after that, and then a Spell Skite to protect it. And looking pretty solidly ahead here. Because of the opponent's Blood Moon, they don't have the mana to hard cast Force Negation or Force of Vigor, so those are going to cost 2 cards for them. And I found another Mystic Forge, which is great. Mystic Forge will allow us to keep hitting land drops every turn, and then increase the amount of mana available. Except for that one. Whereas the Saga is not a land drop that we want to hit. But we don't get to exile it because Tidebinder comes down. Not only countering the exile of Saga, but also turning off Mystic Forge completely. That kind of sucks. But at least it's not a Tidebinder being used on Chalice or Tidebinder being used on Spellskite. So we still have Chalice, Spellskite, and Ensnaring Bridge together the opponent has to deal with before we draw additional threats. And turns out they have a second Tidebinder that'll deal with the Chalice and allow them to resolve 1 Crashing Footfalls. Put a total of 14 power in play. Here, draw a map. I was intending to get Island, but didn't realize I'd exiled it with Serum Powder. Just go get another power plant. Maybe should have been a tower, just in case the Kill Blood Moon have 1 more mana. But the other side of that is if you kill Blood Moon, the opponent Besages the power plant, and won't have Tron anyway. So I don't think it matters too much either way. Find another copy of Chalice, the opponent has second Violent Outburst, so not doing very much after there's 4 Rhinos in play. And we're basically just playing Draw Go here. Found a Karn, but it'll have to wait a turn because of Subtlety. Obviously putting it back on top. And try and cast it again next turn. This time it resolves. Oh, just kidding. There's another Subtlety. Now it resolves. Third time's the charm. When it's out of subtleties, and we can go get Stone Brain and remove Force of Vigor from opponent's deck. Because that can kill both the Spellskite and the bridge at the same time. Whereas the remaining outs, which are Boseiju and I think just Boseiju, they only had one copy of Flame. Well, Boseiju's turned off by Pithing Needle, but if they had any other answers to bridge, then Spellskite would be able to protect. Karn lives again, and there is an Odor. Okay, that is the answer. We want to take out Commandeer, which at the moment can be hardcast. Just immediately end the game. Say this Karn dies to a fire. And I have one Karn left in the deck. So it's very important that that Karn resolves in order to win the game here. At this point, I think my plan is to get Leveler with this Karn, blow up the Blood Moon, and then that'll unlock Inventor's Fair, and let me start double spelling. But third Tidebinder comes down and counters Karn and turns them off. So now we just have the one Karn left, but with a one ring down, we'll be able to draw towards it pretty quickly. However, we're getting a little low on the number of cards left in the library. Right now it's 9. And just when cracking that tablet, you put a Karn to the bottom. So I know that Karn is somewhere in the bottom 4 cards of the 5 cards in the library. And if it's the bottom 1, it might be a problem. And so to try and shuffle them back into the top and crack the map and step here, even though there are no targets left. But it doesn't matter exactly because we'll draw one card for turn and 4 off the ring. So we'll be able to draw all 5 cards. Now, it doesn't mean we lose if you take another draw step, but we have enough lands in play that the last card can go and get Possessed Portal. Make sure that we never have to draw a card again. Here, Possessed Portal is a little awkward because the opponent only has like one fewer permanent in play, but with some Karn wishes, you can go get some things that destroy multiple of their permanents. It allows us to eventually win the game. Here, I wanted to hang on to the Ballista because it kills a lot of creatures. But if they have Odawara, then Odawara bouncing Bridge or Spellskite, any permanent, put me up to 2 cards in hand. Sorry, 3 cards in hand, and allow the Tidebinders and Subtleties to attack. And even though that's not lethal, it means the Subtleties can kill Karn, and that's not okay. If Karn dies, I lose. So I have to say goodbye to the Ballista. But Karn being able to wish every 3 turns is going to be sufficient. So here, since let's take it Ratchet Bomb to kill 4 Rhino tokens for the price of 1, but we also have 1, 2, 3 0 drops of our own. So that's not going to be good on the permanent exchange. But to sack some of those zeros to this portal first. So I decided to go with Sundering Titan, because it will take out 3 lands, and then potentially 2 more going out. Opponent understands what is happening and sacrifices their island to possess portal, so I have to destroy my island with Sundering Titan. I did not, however, notice what was happening for the next wish, and probably should have been sacrificing the Rhinos, although it won't end up mattering. I have enough mana to end the game. Once the blood moons are gone. So here we are, just passing back. And here, they do sacrifice a Rhino. I go and get Ratchet Bomb, which is a mistake. Doesn't matter, the game's won either way, but it will take longer. At this point, I didn't notice that Underworld Cookbook can get back a copy of Ballista, and that will end the game very quickly if Tron is online. Instead of getting Ratchet Bomb, I should just get Cityscape Leveler and blow up the Blood Moon, and then use Cookbook to regrow Ballista and win from there. Instead, I take a detour to kill some Rhinos, and 3 turns later, do the same line. Here, if I wanted to, could have sacrificed the bridge, the leveler attack, but it's unnecessary. Ballista's going to end the game anyway. And so that's round 1. Moving on to round 2, we're on the draw. This player's most recent results are with Scam. This hand has Tron and Karn, so it's a keep against any deck. And they lead on Blood Crypt tapped, which does confirm that they're on Scam, and also it's good they don't have a 1-drop. And against Scam, since we already have Tron, there's some argument to be made to playing Map because it allows access to Urza Saga, but I also already have Karn, so we have bridge access. So if they play a discard spell or 2 or 3 on turn 2, the card that I want least out of the 1-drops to be discarded is Basilisk Collar, because it means any future Ballista could just randomly win the game. So I lead on Collar instead of Map. It probably doesn't matter. And here they have Bowmasters on 2 and nothing on 3. So the game is just over. Make Tron, cast whatever we want. Spellskite and Karn. As soon as Karn's in play or in hand, there's always the threat of Dothy entering play and then Karn dying and then Dothy taking Karn. So that's the first thing that I want to address. even if it means Karn dies here to like a second Bowmasters. Still have the ring. Although ring into second Bowmasters is not the best. Still have map for fair if necessary. And so I do that, map for fair. Because there wasn't going to be a way to save Karn here. And what I should have done, you can still map for fair, or map for fair end step. I shouldn't have cracked it until my main phase. And it's a very small thing, but the opponent ends up manufacturing an instant speed Thoughtseize on my draw step by casting Not Dead on Grief and then bolting their Grief. And suddenly, my bridge is gone, and it's possible to lose this game. Luckily, there is a second map in hand, which you can go get a second fair. And probably should have done that instead of getting Saga. It wasn't an option after cracking the tablet because Metalcraft is gone, but it was an option if I don't crack the tablet. I think that was better. I think the idea I had here is I wanted to set myself up to not just be able to beat the creatures in play, but also beat one of main deck Shieldred. But looking at it now, it seems like just a mistake. But either way, draw Karn off the top. Nothing ever mattered. Get the bridge into play finally. And draw another Karn off the top. From here, going to end up Stone Braining Fable. It's possible that this Stone Brain should just be on Shieldred. Oh, no Stone Brain Fable. Stone Brain Fury first. Because it's very unlikely they're playing more than 2 Lightning Bolt. And so, if you can keep Karn alive, it can wish a bunch of times. And so, the only realistic way for Karn to die is with from Fury. So remove the Furies from the deck, and then Karn is available to deal with any other threats that appear. And draw the one of Dismember as well. That's another answer to Shieldred. This Stone Brain to take Reflection, not Fable of the Mirror. No, don't take Fable. I'll take Shieldred. Good, smart. Because even if they draw Fable as acceleration, what are they accelerating into? Take out the ways for them to win. It doesn't matter how many cards they draw. So sideboarding, swap the chalices for Dismembers, and we head into game 2. First hand was bad. Second hand has turn 4 Tron, 2 payoffs, and a Ballista for early interaction. So it's very good. We get Thoughtseize, taking Karn, obviously. Karn's the most direct route to bridge. Is difficult to beat, but we draw bridge anyway. And then Fury Scam. On turn 2, but it's just going to lose to the bridge. We can jump it for a turn with Ballista. And even if they have Blood Moon here, we can still play the bridge. And it's important to play not Urza Saga on turn 2, in case there is a Blood Moon. That way, you can play bridge on 3, guaranteed. Well, once we draw the Urza's Tower. And even if he didn't draw the tower, giving himself the out to draw land against a 4/4 double strike is important. So we get the bridge down, draw another land, get the forge down, and there's a Shieldred, but I have the Dismember, so that one's dealt with. And now Mystic Forge will let us keep hitting land drops and deal with the remaining copies of Shieldred or Wigan's Command or whatever way his opponent has remaining to win. You get a Fable down, but this Ballista on 2 can trade with the Reflection, which is nice. Find a second bridge, so now any shatter effects are useless. I also have the Spellskite to protect, but I'm assuming Spellskite will die at some point to a Fury or a Terminate. Here to play around an Undying effect and put a counter on Ballista before shooting Reflection. And they do in fact have the Undying effect. So third damage from Ballista will finish it off. You get Serum Powder, which is nice. It's like a land, but you can play more than one a turn. Here I'm deciding whether I want to play the Relic or Cracked Map. So I want to crack the map and play Spellskite, and Relic stays on top after shuffling. It's funny. And I found another Fable, which is pretty good. But with the Mystic Forge and now a decent number of lands, a top clear from Inscribed Tablet, it's going to be difficult to brick on action. And immediately there's a card. This card is going to go get Mythic Needle for Dolphy, because that hasn't been done yet. And now that Karn is in play, it needs to be done. Or else Karn might be in play on the other side of the battlefield soon. Crack Tablet here, make a land drop. Since Blood Moon's in play, Island is better than any other land. We'll take that. Probably gonna wish again. We'll go and get Ballista. This will again be able to deal with the backside of Fable before it has a chance to make any copies. And again, we want to put a counter on Ballista first to play around on Not Dead After All or Undying Evil. And we have enough mana to put 2 counters. And in the case of Undying Evil, which they have, since it can target any creature, we just change the target to Spellskite instead of using up a Walking Ballista ping. Your opponent has another Fury and puts 2 damage on Karn, 2 damage on Ballista. We have 3 Spellskites, so something. Don't want something to die, it doesn't have to. But with the Blood Moon in play, Ballista isn't really ending the game super efficiently. It's fine to let that die. Don't want to let Karn die. Well, there is a Karn on top, so it's fine to let Karn die. But might as well preserve the value. Karn is going to go get Ballista yet again. And as opposed to a Ballista in play, Ballista in hand can be cast for 2 mana per counter instead of 4. So using up a Ballista and then bringing it back is, if possible, is going to end the game faster than sinking mana into putting counters on it, Ballista in play. Anyway, so a 2-0 scam, round 2. Moving on to round 3. On the draw, this hand sucks. It has some potential if you find Urza's Mine, and will do something eventually on turn 4, but turn 4 on the draw is going to be too slow. So I put it back. And find a much better hand. Turn 4 Tron, Gemstone Caverns. Expect the opponent to be on something where Dismember is useful. You can keep that. But since they mulled to 5, thinking that's a lot less likely. More likely they're some sort of combo deck. And as it turns out, they are Living End. Indeed, a combo deck. And so here, instead of going for Tron, well, this still makes Tron on turn 4, but instead of playing Power Plant first, don't play Saga, because Saga can go and get Relic of Progenitus. So if they don't Cascade on turn 3, then it'll be an additional hurdle that they have to get over. And game 1, Living End has very few ways to deal with the things that we have. You can deal with Relic fine by casting a Living End, getting a Graveyard exiled, and then filling it back up and casting another Living End. Or even better, with the Living End still on the stack after the Graveyard is exiled, cycle a few things and bring them back. That's going to take time. And that'll be enough time to go and get a Breach, or a Ring, or a Karn, or all of the above on our side. So sideboarding against Living End. Take out Dismember. Put in Stone Brains. And Pithing Needle's only going to be naming a land, so it's fine to have one, but for Beseiju, we don't need both. So here, I forgot I was playing 60. Walking Ballista is the next worst card. And I end up keeping the needle and cutting Ballista and Collar. Which makes sense. Ballista just doesn't do very much in this matchup. The first hand wasn't very good, and second hand also not very good. This hand is very good. That's Gemstone Caverns. And turn 3 Tron, and a Relic. It's perfect. So put back the Years of Saga and Exile Serum Powder. Because then you have an extra Urza Saga in deck, and that card's pretty good. And Serum Powder is not very good. They have Foundation Breaker. Answer the Relic. But that's okay. They go land Cascade here, just brings back Foundation Breaker. And does nothing. We get Tower. And Power Plant gets Beseiju. But we have another map. So Tron will be back online next turn. And they do have Cascade here, but again, it's just for a Foundation Breaker. So there's only 4 power in play, and I'm fine with that. There's 2 lands in hand. Karn for Bridge doesn't do anything. So in order to let Karn survive longer, I decided to go get Walking Ballista. And so if we hadn't used Serum Powder, I think Ballista boarded out would have been useful. Ballista is more useful when you have Tron. And so for that reason, boarding at least one out can be useful, because then you can wish for it with Karn. And you're not going to be wishing for it with Karn if you don't have Tron. But so we block the Foundation Breaker, shoot the Shardless, because we want to keep the Breaker in play in case there's another Living End. We don't want one of our artifacts randomly being destroyed. Here, it didn't actually count, but turns out that there is enough to mana to crack Tablet first, and then go get Thunder Titan, destroy your opponent's lands, and win the game from there. On to round 4, or 3-0. For on the play, his hand is bad, but that's powder, so we can powder it. His hand has 1 land, so we ship it back, and this is fine. That Saga can do stuff. Might make Tron a little slow, but it'll do something. And I thought it was likely the opponent was playing Scam. And they are, and we have Ballista to take out the Regavan. Very nice. And draw second Tron piece, also very nice. Means this Forge is coming down on turn 4. And they have no turn 2 play, which is great. They also have no turn 3 play, which is great. Go ahead, make a construct, make a Mystic Forge. Mystic Forge sees Dismember on top. Perfect. And get in with Construct. And they decide that based on their hand, this Construct needs to go. And Terminate's not going to have much of a better target. Which is probably true. Finally have a play on turn 4. It's Grief, and my hand is all lands. Thanks to Mystic Forge. Mystic Forge here finds a Ballista on top, so we can play it for 4. Kill Grief, have 2/2 Ballista left over. And then there's a ring underneath that. One has Fury to deal with the Ballista, but we have Dismember to deal with Fury. And then a ring and a Karn and a Fair and a Forge still going and everything. So we played Karn, played Chalice on 1 to stop. Random things like Lightning Bolt. Stonebrain Fable, see their hand is Fury Molten Collapse. So they can kill Karn, they can kill the next Karn too. But it's not going to beat the One Ring. Time is Stonebrain Fable. Pre-board. And we have 2 card advantage engines online. Well, haven't deployed the One Ring yet, but if we want to, we can make it online. And I played the ring, and they scoop it up. So same boarding as Scam. Chalice is out, Dismember's in. And this hand is great. Has the Gemstone Caverns, has Tron with Expedition Map, and it has a ring. Here I make a mistake and exile Saga to Gemstone, with the idea that now that we're post-board, they're going to have Blood Moon. Saga's a liability in that sense. But even keep Saga and exile Inventor's Fair instead, with the Expedition Map, that's still 4 lands for the One Ring, and that'll be enough. And if they don't have Blood Moon, Saga is going to be amazing. And as it turns out, they don't have Blood Moon, and they have a very fast start where Saga producing a blocker or 2 would have eventually allowed us to win the game. So yeah, they start with Fury Scam, and right now set up to take 16 from it, and then play Ring and pray. Whereas if I play a Saga here, could make some jump blockers. And then they go turn 3, Evoke Grief, discard your Ring, and dead on board to the Fury. Draw a Bridge, or a Ring, or a Karn. There are a lot of outs. But Cookbook is not one of them. Many more are non-outs than outs. So the decision of what to exile with Gemstone Caverns didn't end up having an impact and losing the game. So we go to game 3. Here I'm checking just in case. Make sure there isn't a land I can get with map. Maybe they don't attack with Fury, maybe they misclick. So the back, it could be on play. This hand is fine. It has 2 sagas, so there is a real possibility that we get Blood Moon to lose. But it's not coming down on turn 2 because we have Ballista to deal with Ragavan. And that's exactly what happens. And yes, now that they can't play Blood Moon, even if both our sagas die to Blood Moon next turn, could still get down the bridge, and that will probably be enough. Hopefully, be enough. Get down Needle on Dothi. They have the Dothi, and you have the bridge to stop it. And Saga coming off here. You don't need to make Tron, but it will be useful for the future. The plan for this turn is to just use Saga to get map, but use map next turn, because we have 3 lands in play now, and the Saga in hand is 4. That's enough to play out the remaining cards in the hand, which are the Bridge and Needle. Grab map, needle the other thing that needs to be needled, Reflection, and we're pretty much set. Just waiting for card advantage engine, and even then, the map in play can go get Tron, the Saga can go get another map, and that map can go get Fair, which can go get Forge. Just draw Forge anyway. I do put a Shieldred into play, so it's a clock. Right now, a 9-turn clock, so I have some time. And without a Blood Moon, should easily be able to deal with it, especially with 3 Dismembers still left. Saga here, accidentally clicked through floating mana, doesn't matter. Play Karn, go and get Stonebrain, and Stonebrain, remaining copy of Shieldred, because they usually board up to 2. And this is a mistake. And didn't realize until after their next turn exactly how big of a mistake it was. I didn't realize what Molten Collapse did. I was mostly just thinking of it. Well, I knew that it like has the other mode to kill things, but I was focusing on it being a Dreadbore. So I was expecting Karn to die since they see the Molten Collapse in hand, and you can die to a Fury, you can die to many things. So removing a win condition instead of like trying to accrue value is going to be a good play here. But Molten Collapse, if you descended this turn, if a permanent has entered your graveyard, you can use both modes. Which the opponent ends up doing. Next turn, Evoke Grief. Grief goes to the graveyard, Molten Collapse, kill both the Needle on Dothi and Karn, and then Dothi puts a Karn into play. And that's really bad. That's the whole point of rushing Needle on Dothi. So that this doesn't happen. So I should have done, if I was aware of this, is probably just Stonebrain Molten Collapse, or get a second Needle on Dothi, or grab this Ballista from exile and kill Dothi Voidwalker. A lot of things I could have done, but obviously I didn't realize that the card did this. And so end up walking into a disaster. Not game over, especially with this Dismember on top to take out the Shieldred. But it's going to be very hard to win from here. Probably going to involve finding my own Karn, using that Karn to wish for a leveler. That leveler kills your opponent's Karn. So depending on how long it takes to assemble that, the opponent can set up some engine of their own. And because Karn is shutting off Mystic Forge's activated ability, It's still going to provide a decent amount of card draw, but isn't going to allow us to go past the lands. And Blood Moon comes down. Oh, that reminds me. The other good play, in addition to protection from Molten Collapse, even if you didn't know the card did that, was to Stonebrain Blood Moon. Because the mana is the first priority. If we have mana, then cards do broken things whenever we draw them. With the Mystic Forge in play, we're going to draw them. But with Blood Moon in play, makes things go a lot slower. So if any hiccups happen, whether it be Karn or Fieldred or something, makes it a lot harder to react to those in a timely manner. So I really should have done was named Blood Moon with Stonebrain. But I didn't. Wasn't thinking about it. It wasn't in play, so it didn't exist. Now Blood Moon comes down, kills the Saga, puts us back to 4 mana, up to 5 with the land drop. And makes the plan of Karn for Leveler even farther away. Opponent here finds engine explosives with Karn. Because of Blood Moon, only ever going to be on 1 or 2. So it's probably going to be on 1 to blow up the needle for reflection whenever they find a Fable. They find a second Dothy. And since they already blew up 1 Pithing Needle, if this Dothy casts Pithing Needle on Karn, game's over. There's no way for me to win. Down 5 cards in library. Opponent could just say draw go, and the game would end. That being said, they have a Karn in play, so they can do a lot more than that. So here I start casting Ballista for 3, back up and realize that, wait, it does nothing under Karn and Bridge, so just cast it for 0 in case there's more expensive things underneath. Hit some lands. Very slow. One finds a Fable. And thankfully there isn't anything super broken in the Dothy pile, just some lands and things that go and get lands. Because once this Fable flips, you can copy Dothy and activate it every single turn if they want. See a One Ring on top, which usually would be good, but is turned off by Karn. So opponent deploys one of their engineered explosives to get Needle off the board. Kills one of the bridges with Fury and Karn. And now with Fable flipping, threatening to do that to other bridge as well. Here, draw the ring's pretty useless, but there is a Karn on top. And so I go into the tank. And because if I play Karn, I don't have enough mana to play Leveler. So it could die to a lot of things. But if you play it and don't wish, just plus to make it resilient to dying, then opponent might realize that Dothy for Pithing Needle on Karn just wins the game. And so I also didn't want to wish because then the card could be discarded by random Thoughtseize effect. Even the opponent just discarded Grief Thoughtseize. Very easy for them to have another one in hand. But what I didn't realize is that do go Karn down tick, can also play the ring and get protection, which means the card I put into my hand can't be discarded unless Croxa, but we use all Stone Brain against them. So know that there is no Croxa. There's no way for a Wish here to be discarded. And now, even if I went for Leveler kills Karn, probably still just losing to Fable plus Dothy plus Fury. Especially if Leveler ever dies, they get to Dothy it back. Kill my stuff as well. And there's too many things that Leveler needs to kill. It needs to kill Karn. It needs to kill Bridge. Not Bridge. It needs to kill Blood Moon. And it can only kill one unless Bridge is gone. And so here, I'm glad that for a little bit, for a short amount of time, that my opponent killed my second Bridge with K Command. Because it means that I have live outs to win the game. If they don't do anything, I go Karn Leveler, and the Leveler survives. It can kill other stuff eventually. But, as I mentioned before, they do realize that Daltheon Karn just wins here. Especially since now that the bridges are gone, they're threatening lethal so many different ways. So, yeah, once Dothy Needle happens, the only remaining way for me to win the game is they run out of time. They're running quite a bit low on time. To find a second ring. Hopefully they can buy us a turn. But they end up having Bone Crusher Giant to stop the protection. Oh, and also a Shield Drill. That'll just end the game in 5 turns. You can just F6 through 5 turns, and it'll take less than a minute. Aiming for lethal does it too. So that one was lost. It was avoidable. It failed to recognize the potential for my opponent's cards to swing the game around in the way that they did. But we learn from it and improve our play against Scam later. Although, on Monday, Scam probably won't be a deck anymore. But it's possible some deck in the future plays Bolt and Collapse. So knowing exactly what it does will be useful. So move on to round 5 on the play. Opponent reveals Kaheera, so probably just blue-white with the other colors for Leyline Binding and Narset Days Undoing. That's what I should expect. Sand doesn't hurt the Saga, but not much else. Sand has 1 land, and it's Blast Zone, so it's worse. Hold the 5. This one is good. It has turn 4 Tron and 2 4-drops. And also Urza Saga. Game on, when there are no dress downs, usually Urza Saga can just win the game on its own against blue-white by making 2 constructs and go finding Expedition Map for another Saga, and making 2 more constructs, and so on. And we draw some more 4-drops. Which would be nice. It is nice to have backup plans in your hand if your opponent spends all their cards dealing with constructs and you slam a Karn, or Forge, or Ring, or all of the above, and use those to end the game. Here, even though we're missing a land drop this turn, decide to make a second construct because they're going to be powerful. Opponent decides that they want to go after map, cut us off of Tron, which I don't think is the correct play. But based on how this game goes and game 3 goes, maybe it's their only chance to win. Because when Tron is online and they have the mana advantage, sure, they can trade their cards for ours through counter spells and subtlety. We're going to be able to cast quite a bit more spells, overwhelm their interaction. So we missed land drops, but so did they. We hit, able to deploy Serum Powder, get up to 4 mana, and that should be good enough. Draw a second Karn, so the card I really want to resolve here is Mystic Forge, because it lets you cast spells and also find land drops, and it provides an amount of inevitability. It's always going to be good. It's going to get better as time goes on. Karn is generally gated by how much mana you have, and since there are two, I wanted to run out Karn as a bait, since I have the lands. Very likely to have a lot of counters. Here, same idea. Mystic Forge is the card advantage engine that I care about the most, and might as well preserve Karn because it's a little more powerful. Run out the ring, and we talk about power. So Tron is here, can start double spelling. So again, run out Karn, fully expecting it to get countered. Gets subtlety to the top, so even better. And we get a window to deploy Forge. Once Forge is down, the game is basically over. Here, since Karn takes up 4 of my mana, might as well wait until next turn to decide what to wish for. We can get rid of the Chalice and start playing some 1-drops, notably Expedition Map, which can go get Saga, and renew that plan of attack. The opponent has ends up subtlety into binding your bridge, so the subtleties can attack Karn. So, I mean, that's okay. I could have just cast subtlety on Karn and would be in a similar spot. But with Forge Online and Tron Online, just have access to infinite cards. Here I pass the turn with 2 mana up and a Serum Powder in hand, which means there's a slight misstep. You could have played Serum Powder before cracking the map. Actually, that's not true. I was wrong, because one of those mana is from the land that map found. Yeah, never mind. Here, you can just cast a whole bunch of spells, draw a bunch of cards, play whatever you want. Here, I wanted to make sure that one crack map for another saga, and then have 2 mana left over to equip Collar to Ballista and take out the subtleties. Could also maybe have kept an additional 3 mana up to make a construct. We don't really need to make a construct right now. The Ballista is threatening to end the game on its own. And so the opponent is more or less forced to cast a sweeper. Then this saga plus the 2 remaining sagas in the library can make a lot of constructs. And they're pretty big by now. This one's a 10-10. Up to 11-11. Here, go ahead and Pithing Needle One Ring, because opponent could conceivably draw enough cards and point the removal at the right things, and then assemble Narset plus Days Undoing and win the game. So, because Mystic Forge is enough of a card advantage engine, much better than One Ring. Even though we're shutting off our own One Ring, shutting off opponent's One Ring is more important. Much more impactful. So the second verdict comes down, but there's still a lot of constructs where that came from. And another Ballista on top. And you have access to everything. So just guess whatever. Ballista for 3, you got the last saga coming down. So 4 more constructs on the way. Find a Teferi with this Narset, but that's turned off where First Needle. First Needle is usually going to be on Teferi against blue-white, because Teferi can bounce a Needle, so if you Needle something else, they can just Teferi bounce it, and then use that other thing anyway. And Teferi can be annoying bouncing Sagas, setting it back the whole turn. Well, they find a second ring to reset their ring, take less damage, but Karn with so much mana, doesn't really matter. Go ahead and Southern Titan for their lands, kill their planeswalkers, back him for lethal next turn, hit him with Ballista next turn. Do anything. Here, take out the chalices and dismember, or Stone Brains. One more card to cut. End up taking out Cookbook. And going into game 3, realize that Seedscape Leveler is also a very good card to board in this matchup, because I'm going to find Tron eventually, and the destruction ability trigger isn't countered by the counter spells that they play. So you can kill a Leyline Binding to get something powerful back, or kill one of their planeswalkers. It's very good. On here to game 2, we have Tron with map and 2 cards. That's pretty good. Run out the first one, fully expecting it to get countered, and it does. Again, the card you really want to resolve here is Mystic Force. So if you can get them to either tap out on their turn, or tap out using their counters on Karn, or Walking Ballista, then be in a pretty good spot. Here, since they already have Collar in play, Ballista is a relevant threat. But then they play One Ring, so I want to get Karn down to stop that. And what I end up doing here is Ballista, equip Collar, kill Subtlety so that Karn isn't pressured, and Karn wish for Needle. Just Needle Teferi, like I mentioned. But I think this is a mistake, and because Karn can still die, they have removal that isn't a creature. And so should either have wished for something like impactful, like Thunder and Titan, something that demands an answer. Or I think the correct thing to name with Needle was the One Ring. Even though Karn is shutting it off, we don't have One Ring in play. They have One Ring in play. One Ring is basically the only way that they have to keep up with our card advantage. So shutting it off, it should make the game pretty easy. And exactly what I described ends up happening. They Leyline Binding Karn and draw a bunch of cards with Ring. And it's bad. Here we draw Stone Brain. Lead off with Mystic Force to get a little bit more information about what my next plays are going to be looking like. And end up Stone Braining Leyline Binding, which is a reasonable decision, as Leyline Binding is their best removal spell. But it's not the most important card here. Should name is first Crumble to Dust, because that'll take us off the mana advantage that is so important in this matchup. We're not thinking about Crumble to Dust because sideboard card. Then you can probably just name Days Undoing, or Narset. Actually, Narset's going to be better because really their only way to win, the main way that they're going to win is to assemble Narset, and then either Days Undoing or the Guy Reach Sanitarium doesn't play, and stop you from drawing cards altogether. So I think naming Leyline Binding here is a mistake. Leyline Binding is a 1-for-1, whereas stuff like Crumble of Dust, Days Undoing, Narset are potentially 7-for-1, 8-for-1 or more. Yes, Crumble's only 4-for-1 ever, but stopping the mana in addition to removing the lands is extremely impactful. Well, we find our own One Ring, and tap weirdly so that you have to make a construct main phase, but it's fine. They want a prismatic ending a construct. It's okay. And it's play Relic. So Relic end up sacking next turn to draw a card. But I think that's a mistake. You want Relic to, like, thinking about the long game, eventually, in order to undo the advantage that we create with Tron and with One Ring and Forge, they're gonna go Narset Days Undoing. And when they do that, all the removal and the counters that we've chewed through so far will get shuffled back into the library. So I want to hold Relic for as long as possible to make sure that as few answers get shuffled back. So this saga goes off. We need a One Ring because, again, it's much better for them than it is for us. But don't have much going on other than the saga. As they have 8 cards to work with. And they find a Crumble to Dust, which doesn't really end up mattering, but there are many situations where never having Tron again is significant. Like if you draw a card, you want to spend a lot of mana in one turn. Not going to be possible. So right now, the game plan is loop sagas for as long as possible and hope the opponent runs out of threats or runs out of answers for the constructs. And spoiler alert, they do not. But at least it takes a while. Here, could consider holding Ballista, because opponents at 6 could be actually a threat to their life total. But because they know about the Solitude in hand, they're gonna assume they're gonna be able to gain life at some point, and might as well run it out to force the interaction as soon as possible. Make it that much more likely that they will run out eventually. But they have a second Solitude. Bad. And then they find Narset and Days Undoing. So a whole new hand of 7 cards plus the Solitude, Prismatic Ending, Supreme Verdict, dress down, they shuffled back. They'll shuffle back 2 copies of Urza Saga, so the loop keeps on going. But between Narset and the 7 cards they've drawn and Gyri Sanitarium, I'm going to be able to easily keep up with just 1 construct a turn. And so, still going to play it out, especially because it's online. Well, first of all, they could get unlucky and not draw the right cards. But because of the chess clocks, and now that they're down to 5 minutes, still have to deal 20 damage to me, and there is a game 3 coming. Could be a potential way to win. So here, they find the crumble to dust, and they shuffle back. Takes out. There's a Saga, just nothing more that you can do. And just F6 through both players' turns until we die. So here, sideboarding for game 3, and decide that collar isn't very impactful at all. Their stuff is small anyway. I'll swap it for Leveler for the reasons I mentioned earlier. And see Leveler and opening hand, that's pretty good. 2 pieces of Tron and draw a map, which is nice. And get down early Stone Brain. It's not answered, so we can Stone Brain this time. Correctly naming Crumble of Dust, that's the first thing. Map here eats a counterspell, which is hilarious. Because there's another one. And the one of the few times when we're able to trade up in mana as opposed to down. And just run out of Ballista, because it can be a threat on its own. Don't even have to cast other things. Pop up to 3. It's starting to get in a significant amount of damage. And chose not to, with their 4th land, play the One Ring. So imagine there's some counterspell. Here, tap weirdly, because I assumed I was putting 2 counters on, but forgot about the Solitude. But the 1 mana doesn't end up mattering, because now that they've tapped out, we can land the One Ring and take over the game. And we start drawing cards. Hit Karn. And Spellskite. And another Ballista. We'll just start off with the Ballista, because they're going to have Subtlety. Well, we can just keep it on top. Have access to so many cards with Ring, even if we're not casting it next turn, can still be useful. We exhaust all the resources and then have a million lands to play. Ballista for 10 could just end the game. They have an Narset, but we have Leveler to answer that, so that the Ring is still on. Here, shouldn't play Island, should just play Fair. There's already an Island in play. These Spellskites aren't going to do much anyway, and Fair will allow us to gain a life every turn, which will be relevant with a ring, 1 ring with 3 burden counters on it already, and a Subtlety attacking for 4 in the air. So that was a mistake, but doesn't matter that much. Very much ahead in this game. Someone has Dress Down to stop the first Leveler attack. from being useful. Although I probably should have still attacked with it, even though there's no trigger. Spellskite's able to block Kaheera, but it is a little scary being at 8 against a 4 power flyer. But this Wandering's gonna buy a turn off of that. And we saw from Stonebrain they only have one dress down, so Leveler's going to be able to get in this turn. Cut off the Subtlety, tip them down to 3. Land Binding, just immediately redirect the Spellskite. And now that they're 3, this Ballista is a gigantic threat. So bait first with Karn, it's a counterspell. I can just cast Ballista for 4 and end the game. Whoa, long one. But a victory against Blue-White. Now, on to round 6. On the play, I looked at my opponent, and their most recent result was Rhinos. And so, got this opening hand. Powder this one, because that's one land. But, the next one of turn 4 Tron and Chalice of the Void. Well, that seems pretty good against Rhinos. But just in case they're not playing Rhinos, hold the Chalice for a turn. Because we're on the play. They can't Cascade until turn 3. Gives them a little bit more chance to draw a Force Negation, but also denies them the information that they have to beat a Chalice with the way they sequence their other cards. They just lead on Power Plant Map, and they play Windswept Teeth. So it's not Rhinos, I'm thinking. It's just probably just Beans. Or some other random 4-color deck. But what I failed to do was click on the deck list from them. I just saw Rhinos and assumed Temur Rhinos. But no, it was 4-color Rhinos. So here I'm expecting 4-color control. Chalice is useless against them. And they go turn 3 Shardless, make Rhinos. And put 10 power in play and I die. So it's very possible they had an answer between Leyline Binding, Force Negation, or this Chalice. But it was still a big mistake to not run it out, given the information that was available. So now suddenly I'm under a lot more pressure than I expected to be. And I can make Tron, I can make Forge, but still need to find a card or a bridge. Pithing Needle Healer is nice, it'll shut off the Seiju, but Seiju doesn't matter if we don't have a way to stop the Rhinos from coming out. Finally get the Chalice down. And there's a pause here, just like there's a pause on the turn 1 map, which makes me think that there might be a Force Negation. So might not be able to win anyway. But between the Chalice, once the Chalice resolves, Construct is a 4/4, so it can attempt to block a Rhino. And so I do that. It's not getting any better. Life total is going to be decreasing quickly. Trying to make it a 5/5 to eat a Rhino, or maybe 6/6 to eat it through Violent Outburst isn't going to be very reliable. They end up having Leyline Binding. And they binding the Chalice. I'm like, okay, maybe they do care about Chalice. So I can lead on this other one and maybe bait something. And they fetch, and I'm hoping it's hard cast Force Negation, but it's just another Cascade. That's fine. As long as this Karn resolves, I can go get Ratchet Bomb, even though it'll blow up the Chalice also. Get rid of 4 Rhinos. Which is good enough for the situation. But they have Subtlety. And, Karn gets hit by both Subtlety and Force of Negation. Hard for it to resolve. And here, now that they have 4 Rhinos in play, my only out is to find a bridge on the top of my library. So I might as well play the Powder first. And just miss. Going to game 2. Boarding against Team of Rhinos and 4-color Rhinos is going to be the same. Want the Stone Brains, don't want Dismember. Ballistas are not that good, but better than they are against Living End. And you can trim on Pithy Needle, because it's only really naming Boseiju. Some of the lists might have Teferi, and if there's Teferi, you want to keep in 2 needles for sure. Alright, so going to game 2, we have Tron, we have a Bridge, and a Forge. So pretty good. I'm going to keep that one. They have turn 1 Suspend, which is good for us. Another card out of their hand that is not interaction. Go turn 3 Tron. Now that there are 2 bridges, fun running them out in the face of Force Negation. Here, probably should have just cast Pithing Needle first and name Boseiju. That way, maybe they force a negation the first bridge. Now that they see that there are 2 bridges, they don't really care about Needle and Boseiju. But they don't respond to Needle, so just go ahead and take the Strip Mine, Needle, Winds Up Teeth, and they scoop it up. So on to game 3. This one's going to be hard because we're on the draw against a deck that puts 10 power in play and then has Leyline Binding and other interaction for bridge. But 6 is pretty good. It's got Tron, Ballista can do something, and Chalice. I'm going to play out the Chalice on turn 1 because least likely that they'll have a Force Negation. And even if they use Negation, would rather be used on Chalice than Bridge. Chalice is going to be useless later if they already put creatures in play. But Bridge is always going to be great. And draw Stonebrain. And I didn't even think about casting Stonebrain here. And probably just should have, because I'm going to find ways to spend all our mana on later turns anyway, with Walking Ballista. And letting my opponent know that there's a Stonebrain. I guess what I wanted was for it to not get exiled by Leyline Binding. I think that is pretty important. So holding Stonebrain is fine here. Just Saga. Immediately fire off Stonebrain. Naming Force of Vigor. And it's usually my first name against Rhinos, because that's their interaction piece that's 2 for 1. It kills 2 artifacts instead of just 1 out of that Leyline Binding does, or Flame of Anor. And since they already have the power in play, you can't name Footfalls, can't name. It would be way too slow to name something like Commandeer. But wondering if there was a better play. If I'm supposed to hold the Stonebrain or something. Because what ends up happening is get to exile the Force of Vigor from the deck and see 2 Leyline Bindings and a Violent Outburst in hand. That's bad. That's really bad. So maybe I'm supposed to name Leyline Binding because there are more of them. maybe supposed to name Crashing Footfalls, so that a single Ratchet Bomb will stabilize the board for a very long time. Maybe naming Force of Vigor is correct, because card we lose the most to. But even if there was just one Leyline Binding in hand, we're in a rough spot. Once this bridge goes away, I mean, the Ballista can trade with one of the Rhinos, maybe. But especially with the Outburst bringing more Rhinos, it's going to be very difficult. The counterpoint to that is, if it did end up naming Leyline Binding and exiling 2 from their hand, that brings them 2 draws closer to one of their super haymakers in the form of Force of Vigor or Boseiju disrupting Tron, or Commandeer making Karn useless. They are pretty far away from having 2 blue cards to pitch to it, so that's probably not correct. But I do think perhaps the best name, after looking at their deck list, they have 1 Boseiju main and 2 side, is going to be Boseiju. Even though there's 1 more copy of Leyline Binding, Boseiju being able to hit Tron lands in addition to Ensnaring Bridge is really important. And as we've seen in the previous matches, when it was supposed to Stonebrain Blood Moon and it's supposed to Stonebrain Crumble to Dust, maintaining Tron is like #1 thing that you want to do. Now, obviously, you can deviate from that a little bit when facing down 10 power on board, but if you're gonna name something that kills Bridge anyway, you might as well name the one that also kills Tron. But one reason to not do that is because you're able to Pithing Needle Boseiju and can't Pithing Needle Leyline Binding or Force of Vigor. But again, there's 10 power in play, so don't really have time to do that. At least us to this turn. I draw Mystic Forge and immediately play Saga, because it's in my head that there are 3 Boseijus in the deck, and I need to stop that. But this is a mistake, because first of all, we're dying very quickly. I know that there's a Leyline Binding in hand, and a Violent Outburst. Violent Outburst represents 3 damage with the attacking creatures, and then an additional 8 the next turn, and I'm at 10. That's not really survivable. And my first thought here was I'll play Mystic Forge. If Mystic Forge hits a ring or a bridge, bridge doesn't work because of Leyline Binding, but if it hits a ring, or like maybe a Spellskite as a chump blocker for a turn, that's pretty good. But if it misses, and the only play is Ballista for 2, then they can't Leyline Binding the Ballista, because we'll shoot the Shardless Agent. They can only attack for 8. But if they attack and play Violent Outburst, that's 10 power trample. So if it block the Rhinos, there's 3 power coming over from the Shardless Agent. They're just dead to the Violent Outburst if the Forge misses. And so that means that after playing Saga here, the only line is to play Ballista for 4 and trade with a Rhino and have more mana next turn with the Forge. But that really sucks, because paying 4 mana for Forge when you need to hit something, we want to get it down as soon as possible so they can exile multiple times, and also so that you don't have to pay the 4 mana up front, because that's a lot of mana to be spending, especially when you need to spend mana on Bridge or Ring or Karn. Karn would be great too, because Karn can just go get Ratchet Bomb, and Leyline Binding won't deal with Ratchet Bomb. So what we should have done is play Tower, then play Forge. Then if Forge misses, you can play Ballista for 3. Well, this line also kind of sucks. So maybe even then you just play Ballista for 5. And Ballista for 5 is a lot better than Ballista for 4. I mean, not that much better. But it threatens to block a Rhino token if the opponent does nothing. So they can't just like attack go. You have to either Leyland Binding it, where using up the Leyland Binding, suddenly Ensnaring Bridge is a very good out. Or main phase the Violent Outburst to trade with the Rhino, or trade the Rhino with the Ballista, in which case they use up all their mana and can't Leyline Binding as efficiently. And if we find a Karn for Ratchet Bomb, it cleans up all the Rhinos, which is great. So that's what I should have done. Now that we've played Saga, I tank for a long time and realized that I have to play Ballista for 4, and hope and pray that this Forge can get us out of it. And like I said before, the difference between Ballista 4 and Ballista 5 is that with Ballista 4, they can just attack and say go, threatening to make more Rhinos. And so that's what they do. We draw a ring, so it would have hit if we played the Forge, but no, it's unlikely. So now, gotta play the ring, because otherwise they're gonna outburst and we're dead. We know about the Leyland Binding, so can't tap the ring for mana. And here, why didn't I play Forge? Wow, that's a pretty big mistake, not playing Forge. Yeah, I don't know why. Like I said before, spending the 4 mana out front for Forge is something you want to do as soon as possible, because that's a lot of mana. Here, I thought that I could make constructs to block, with the idea that Saga makes a construct, and makes a second construct, and goes and finds Underworld Cookbook, and that discards a card. The constructs are 4/4s. They'll trade for 2 Rhinos. Still 2 more Rhinos coming after that. And I guess Cookbook, you gain 3, go up to 9, but 2 more Rhinos. No, okay, so it takes 6 down to 3, and survive another turn, and use that turn to get Mystic Forge down. But nah, that's stupid. Especially because they can make the Rhinos not 4/4s if they want. So they go ahead and binding the ring. We can get a draw off of it. But still relying on this Forge to get us there. Protection from everything so they don't attack. Make construct and stuff. The ring draw was not very good. Just Gemstone Caverns. And then we draw a second Gemstone Caverns for turn. So no luck there. And then also in draw step, we get Besajude taking off Tron. So we're not dead this turn, because they use the mana for Besajude, means they can't use mana for Violent Outburst. At the very least, we can chump. We can still get Cookbook, make 4/4s. But Tron being offline is going to be very hard to come back from. Going to no longer can use the Mystic Forge, because didn't play it earlier. And basically just have to top deck, bridge, and pray. Here it's important to double block, because we know they have Violent Outburst. So if you single block and they cast Violent Outburst, that's 1 damage for free that could have been prevented. And here they have 12 power in play. But with Spellskite and Cookbook activation and eating a food, we have 8 toughness and 9 life. Sorry, 7 toughness and 9 life. So Oh, I forgot to add the +4 from Violent Outburst. So we are able to survive. Although, without, again, not many live top decks, just the bridges. But if you somehow find Ensnaring Bridge, land Karn for Ratchet Bomb, you can maybe win. But again, this line survives at 1 life and involves discarding the Mystic Forge. So you can no longer use that as an engine to see more cards to get to a bridge. But it's the line that keeps us alive, so we have to take it. Can't go back and fix the mistakes. Have to make the best of the game state as it appears. So yeah, here lose if we didn't make another artifact. The construct blocking Rhino. You have to discard the last card in hand. And draw. Roll. Another Mystic Forge. Yeah, not gonna be good enough. I decided to go out on my own terms by playing Mystic Forge and paying 1 life and dying. So we lost the Rhinos by not correctly discerning that it was in fact 4-color Rhinos and making some incorrect sequencing and stone brain decisions in game 3. So, moving on to final round. Round 7. Around the play, we have Tron and Karn and Ring and everything that ever wanted. So that's perfect. One's most recent result is Living End. And they are in fact playing Living End. And so they cycle some lands in play. But they do not have Force of Negation. Oh, they do have Boseiju, which is kind of annoying. Could have played around the one of Boseiju by playing Spellskite on turn 2. That'll delay a 4-drop from being played until turn 4, which is not worth it to play around random one of. I mean, it's not random. It's a pretty powerful card, but most of the time they're not going to have it. And so they Cascade. They put 12 power in the play, which is beatable. With the addition of Oliphant from Lord of the Rings, that's like a decent amount of fractional clock on average being taken off. Sometimes you're able to, like, opponent cascades, you play Mystic Forge with all your mana, and then they hit you down to 3, but you survive. And then Mystic Forge finds a bridge and you win. But that doesn't always happen now because of their ability to put quite a lot more power into play. And here, I kind of missed it, but so we're in a similar situation. We can take a hit, even though we don't have 4 mana to play a One Ring, and still be fine. So any land, well, let's play the ring, draw a bunch of cards, play another ring, draw a bunch of cards, and by then we'll probably either find Tron or Ensnaring Bridge and win the game from there, especially since Besiege's already been used. But you miss on land. But we do hit Tablet. And Tablet is 6 more looks at a land. And misses. And the 7th one is also not a land. So we're dead. So I'm going to sideboard the same way as previous Living End, bring in the Stone Brains. They got Dismember, they got Needle, they got Ballista and Collar. I think before I kept in a second Needle for a Ballista. Doesn't really matter. They don't board into additional copies of Beseiju. So it's just one Needle for Beseiju, one Needle for Odawara if you need to. But Odawara costing 4 means it comes out a lot later than Beseiju can. And also, like, as I mentioned before, Beseiju goes after your lands too. So it's a lot more important to care about compared to Odawara. Here, I have very good hand. It's got Tron, it's got Bridge, and a Ring. It also has Saga, and as we saw in the previous Living End match, Saga on 1 is a threat. It just gets Relic. If you're on the draw, they have to miss. They have to not Cascade on 3. If you're on the play, you get a Relic down on turn 3 before they can even put Living End on the stack. So might as well start with that. And in a similar vein to playing against Control, you generally want to deploy your less important interaction first. So Relic is very good, but it's going to deal with one set of creatures in the graveyard. Whereas Ensnaring Bridge and Karn are going to deal with all the creatures ever. And so if you get an opponent to commit resources to dealing with the less important piece, then they won't have those available to deal with. The better card, the Bridge. And so they have Foundation Breaker to kill the Relic. But we have Ring and 2 Bridges. And a Spellskite. This Spellskite isn't going to do anything because as soon as they resolve Living End, it'll be going to the graveyard. But the second Spellskite, it's pretty good. Here, I thought I made a mistake because this Living End is going to bring back Grief and discard a Bridge. But it's also going to bring back a Foundation Breaker. So if you play out the Bridge beforehand, it's just going to get blown up anyway. So however you sequence it, one of the bridges is going to go away, but the second one and the Spellskite are going to stop it from attacking for a long time. And so we force the issue with Stonebrain, just in case they didn't have a Cascade, we can name Living End, and the game is pretty easy from there. But now that they have the Violent Outburst, we can name Force of Vigor. So now their only outs are Beseiju, Odawara, and the second copy of Foundation Breaker. And since they have Spellskite, they're going to need 2 of those 3 things in order to break our board. And so here, with that in mind, the only way we lose is if there are 2 of the spot removals coming out. You can go ahead and 2 different Inventor's Fair, because that can go get a second Bridge, a second Spellskite. So Okan gets forced, that's fine. Play fair, go get Spellskite. And then now they need all 3 in the same turn. But I forgot that drew some cards with Ring. So now a number of their creatures can attack. Should have just played the Ballista out for 0. We'll take a hit for 8 here that was just completely avoidable. And with the One Ring dealing additional 3 damage, it could actually be relevant. Probably not. If they're going to attack, they're going to attack for a gigantic amount. It just means that, like, I can't draw more cards with Ring, but that's fine. I don't want to draw more cards with the Bridge in play. And I already have Forge to be the card advantage. This, both me and my opponent kind of forgot that Karn isn't safe here. I have protection for everything, but Karn does not. And because I drew 4 cards with Ring before playing the new run, the Curator Mysteries can attack. And so, could just kill Karn there. It doesn't matter. Karn did his job, turned into a Neil from Beseiju. Karn living or dying was not going to let my opponent win this game. But it's probably a little bit more accurate to not play the Karn off the top and wait until next turn. You can play out all the cards in hand. Ballista gets subtletied. Keep on top, play it again. But not for 1. Like I mentioned before, the efficiency of casting Ballista compared to putting counters on it is double. 2 mana per counter when casting and 4 mana per counter otherwise. So gonna get more counters overall by waiting a turn to play it. The reason to play it for X equals 1 here is if you wanted to get deeper, wanted to draw an additional card next turn, but that's not necessary. The game's already over. What's more useful in this spot is actually ending the game. So putting more counters on Ballista will end the game faster. That hand sucked. That hand also sucked. This hand also kind of sucked. Doesn't make Tron. This hand is a 5, and it's not a London 5. It's a Vancouver 5 without a scry. So it's these 5 or a Molda 4, but you actually get to see 7. And I decided to keep this hand because this hand has a plan. The plan does involve drawing another land, but it with just a single other land, this hand is pretty strong because Chalice on 0 demands an answer, and then Stonebringer also demands an answer. And then, presumably, those 2 things will slow the opponent down enough, unless they have, like, perfect Cyclers, Cascade, Double Force Negation, or Foundation Breaker, that will draw some lands, some additional lands, and they don't have to be Tron lands, they just have to be for whatever lands, and cast a One Ring, and go from there. And because of that plan, this hand is probably better than most 4s. You can expect, like, at least 1 piece of interaction post-board from an average living end draw. And if your 4 is just Tron Karn or Tron Bridge, they have the interaction with Bridge, and you have to draw something. Reliant on top of the deck. Reliant on top of the deck for action. This hand is reliant on top of the deck for lands. There are a lot more lands than action in the deck. So we hit Urza Saga. It's probably going to die to a Foundation Breaker, but that means the Chalice isn't dying to Foundation Breaker. It means the Stonebrain isn't dying. And as it turns out, they only have 1 land. Do a lot of cycling and still only have 1 land. So both kept 1-landers, but mine worked out better. So we're gonna snap off Stonebringer on Living End here. Make it so that their game plan is slowed down immensely. They can still win, but 3-mana 2/2 is not gonna cut it. You're gonna have to cast 4-mana 4/4s, 4-mana 3/3s, and so on. And so the Stonebringer sees the reason why they kept the hand. It has a lot of interaction and Shardless. They just need to hit lands, similar to my hand, but we play a bit more lands. And now, before they needed to hit just 3 lands to Cascade, now they have to hit 4. So that's bad for them. Good for us. Give us so much more time to find our lands. Our lands is going to be a lot more impactful. Lets us cast working 4 jobs put in a deck. Draw a Spellskite. That'll trade with a Foundation Breaker. Draw a Cookbook. Doesn't really do anything here. I guess what Cookbook can do is if you draw a bridge and no lands for the rest of the game, then it can make sure that the bridge is still stopping the opponent from attacking. So they continue to miss on land 3. Well, they do hit 2 Force Negations, so our stuff isn't... Our spells aren't resolving either. But with 4 lands in play, oh, they keep coming. So get that Mystic Forge. And that'll help find additional land drops past the board. And it'll also trade with the second Foundation Breaker. Now that Living End's out of the way, this Chalice on 0 isn't doing anything. That's fine. If I have another Stone Brain, this one's going to take Force of Vigor. There's some argument to be made to name something other than that, because our artifacts don't necessarily matter in a game where Living End is all copies are exiled. But it's still conceivable that we miss on Tron for a while, can only play one spell a turn, get subtletied a couple times, maybe they find 2 lands in a row and cast a subtlety, then Bridge is going to be a very relevant card in that game. And so being able to be safe behind 2 copies of Bridge or Bridge with Spellskite is pretty important. There isn't anything like near the power level of Force of Vigor left in their deck. So they subtlety Karn, but you can just put them back up top. Know that they have a second subtlety, but no blue card this time. So Karn gets the stick. No Tron, so no mana to spend. We'll just plus and wait. Oh, actually, there's a mistake. Because I had 1 mana left over, and the best thing to get with Karn here is Map to make Tron. Because Tron's broken. So I wish for Map this turn, and go get Tower, turn on Tron, and win from there. But should have been done the previous turn. At this point, I was playing a little loose at round 7. The long online tournament fatigue had begun to set in. Thankfully, it's a good matchup and favorable mulligan circumstances. Yeah, so now I'm gonna cast Thundering Titan. Stop them. They finally found 4 lands to cast their spells. And I'm going to attempt to destroy 3 of them. There's a subtlety, hard cast, which I didn't know about, but there's still the Thundering Titan looming. And here they make a mistake. It's not really going to end up mattering. They have a Beseiju, and they wait until upkeep to Beseiju Tower. This allows me to do is use Fair. Fair can just go find Map, and Map will go find Tower, and reassemble Tron. And make it not much less likely that I can ever lose this game. And so I just do just that. Get Tower, get Karn, get Bridge. And now the game is officially over. Odoar is in play. Seiju's already been used. Both Foundation Breakers have been used. Force of Vigors are gone. One has no ways left to win the game. So it's just up to us to end it. And they figured it out. They agree with us that there's no way to win the game. And so scoop it up. So finish 5-2. A fine record. Would have preferred to make top 8, but made some mistakes to prevent that from happening, and get to learn from those mistakes and improve next time. Thank you for watching. This one's a little bit longer than the previous one. Also, I decided to record myself playing live instead of recording the replay and commentating over that. And I think that makes for a better viewing experience. So I'm gonna attempt to do it this way moving forward. And also maybe do some live recordings. Alright. As always, if there are any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to leave a comment. And until next time.